Midnight on the Black Sea, where darkness hides distance and danger.
A flicker appears, small, fast, and wrong.
In seconds, routine watch becomes a threat call.
Всем постам! Боевая тревога! Держать глубину!
The sea itself starts moving.
Not a ship, an unmanned hunter.
Far from the blast radius, hands steer the strike.
This is warfare by signal and nerve.
One threat becomes many, angles multiplying faster than decisions.
When you can't see the danger, you start guessing.
Then the first impact hits like a mechanical punch.
A warship's rhythm breaks, and every second costs.
Timing is the blade, and she chooses the moment.
A second drone closes, closer than the gunners expect.
The ship turns to face one threat and exposes itself to another.
This isn't brute force. This is calculation.
On the Black Sea, the battlefield is the water itself.
A calm voice in a room decides how fear spreads.
Copy.
A navy that once hunted now wonders what hunts it.
But how did this sea become a weapon?
If you want to understand how war shaped our world, stay with us.
If you want the next forgotten world, subscribe, and we'll uncover it together. The puzzle is simple. How do you shrink a fleet without matching it?
For Ukraine, the sea is oxygen, trade, grain, survival.
Every route over land is slower, riskier, and watched.
For Russia, Crimea is a base and a symbol they must defend.
Harbors become choke points, and choke points become targets.
The fleet adapts. More patrols, more barriers, more caution.
Ukraine adapts too, building danger from small parts.
In modern war, the map is never just geography, it's a schedule.
Ships must move, and movement creates patterns.
If you can't own the sea, you make it too expensive to own.
Countermeasures rise. Helicopters hunting shadows on the surface. This battle is fought by operators as much as sailors.
Every defense added is also an admission. The harbor is not safe.
Weather becomes cover. Rain and wind erasing signatures. The weapon is simple. Speed, guidance, and a single impact point.
The sea is huge. until threats force you into narrow lanes.
Choke points turn water into corridors, and corridors into traps.
Copy.
They don't need to sink everything, only to change behavior.
On the bigger side, drills multiply, because fear multiplies.
The moment it touches water, it becomes a question mark. 1, 2, 3.
Minutes war, minutes are weapons.
Most nights, you find nothing, and that's what makes the next night worse.
Because uncertainty is the real payload.
Defenses thicken, booms, nets, paroles, yet the sea remains open.
Every mission is logistics. Power, signal, weather, and luck.
The fleet still has firepower. What it lacks is certainty.
So the plan becomes geometry. Force the defender to split.
One spotlight cannot cover 3 directions.
Under pressure, even trained hands slow by seconds.
They wait for the ship to commit to its lane.
Then the strike begins. Quietly, deliberately.
Because the first sign of danger is often movement you can't confirm. Quickly, move to your stations!
This wasn't brute force, this was timing.
And darkness is the oldest camouflage.
Now the question is no longer where are they, but how many?
The Black Sea isn't open. Its harbors force predictable lines.
Predictable lines create predictable vulnerabilities. Defenders search the surface, but the surface lies.
Attackers don't need stealth ships, only stealth moments.
Beat 1. Read the terrain, then choose where the ship must slow.
At choke points, turning space disappears.
Beat 2.
Shape the enemy's choices with pressure and uncertainty.
Every evasive move burns fuel and focus!
The trap begins with patience, not motion.
Because one leak ends a mission before it begins.
Beat 3. Lock the trap. Angles first, then timing.
Counter hunters appear, but they can't be everywhere.
Small corrections keep the machine alive.
And stress turns every shadow into a potential contact.
Evasive maneuvers, bearing 090. Firepower is useless if it fires at the wrong place.
A decoy pulls the eyes, so the real threat pulls the distance.
Execute phase 1.
This is geometry disguised as chaos.
When the ship turns, it buys seconds and spends stability.
Seconds feel like minutes when the threat is sprinting.
The worst moment is when you lose sight of it.
The operator doesn't need bravery, only precision.
Inside the ship, the battle is containment and control.
And then the trap asks its only question. Can you react fast enough?
Now.
In the control room, silence becomes the loudest sound.
Now it's just one question. Will the enemy step exactly where you want?
The first seconds are not explosions, they're hesitation.
On deck, eyes search for a shape that refuses to appear.
A small wake becomes a moving deadline.
Far away, Orion guides the drone by instinct and signal.
Kira counts the seconds like ammunition.
The spotlight finds nothing, and that's how panic begins.
They fire into darkness, trying to force certainty out of water.
But the attack isn't one line, it's a net.
The ship turns to face one threat and exposes its flank to another.
Worst moment is losing the wake.
Steady.
A centimeter on the controller becomes meters at sea.
Counter hunters arrive! Rotors, lights, and bullets!
Another drone uses the bait to steal distance.
The defense starts chasing, not controlling.
Captain A chooses the most visible threat.
Target the nearest contact. All engines full ahead.
And the geometry punishes that choice.
The first impact isn't dramatic. It's catastrophic in silence.
Inside, containment becomes the real battle.
All engines ahead full. New course, 250.
Aye, Captain. Engaging!
The ship tries to buy space with speed.
But speed creates noise, and noise creates blind spots.
In the control room, they watch the defender commit to motion.
Now the second drone runs the final meters.
The gun fires fast, but the ocean gives no clean target.
Another hit, another shudder, another loss of control.
The warship's rhythm is broken.
When systems falter, the sea doesn't forgive.
Kira doesn't celebrate. She waits for confirmation.
Because one strike isn't victory, behavior change is.
The ship starts thinking about retreat. The drones don't need a kill, they need a decision.
A commander's pride collides with a commander's duty.
In the open sea, uncertainty becomes a minefield.
They mark the sea like territory, without ever planting a flag.
Back at base, defenses multiple, because confidence is bleeding away.
A fleet built to project power is forced to measure risk.
Every mission teaches. Every failure upgrades the next.
Soon, the sea feels smaller, not by borders, but by fear.
Again.
And the pressure campaign continues, night after night.
When ships hide deeper in harbor, the strategy has already changed.
Defense becomes labor, rope, steel, and exhaustion.
The tactic is simple. Overload the defender's attention.
One light, one gun, one ship. Never enough.
The commander realizes this isn't a duel, it's a trap.
Every evasive turn creates a new blind side.
They guide the drones toward places the ship can't easily escape.
Near choke points, the sea becomes a hallway.
In a hallway, speed is a battering ram.
The defense fires to stop motion, but motion keeps coming. A near miss is still a message. You were seconds away.
Hard to starboard. Take her to the shoreline. Maximum speed.
Then comes the pivot. Retreat becomes the safer plan.
The battle flips from attack to escape.
They don't chase for glory, they chase for behavior.
Back near harbor, the fleet starts operating like it's under siege.
And fatigue becomes a tactical factor.
For Ukraine, even success is quiet, because it must be repeatable.
For Russia, every patrol becomes a drain on readiness.
The campaign evolves. New routes, new timings, new tricks. The EF safe zone shrinks again.
Even distant harbors begin to feel exposed.
Doctrine lags behind technology, and commanders pay the gap.
The battlefield to workbench loop runs non-stop. Most nights are quiet, and that quiet is the pressure.
Because the sea has learned to lie.
They measure success in routes denied, not ships sunk.
The fleet coils, staying near cover like a wounded animal. Power relocates from the open sea to the harbor's shadow.
And the attackers keep asking the same question. Where is safe now?
A commander can order calm, but he can't order certainty.
Every next mission is built from quiet logistics.
Every next defense is built from tired routines.
Change the lane, and you change the battle.
Defenders respond, tightening the net around themselves. Attackers respond, extending reach and clarity.
The ocean's noise becomes a cloak.
In wind and spray, even human voices fail.
So the battle becomes psychology. Who breaks first? And the fleet's answer is retreat by inches.
Layers of defense can still be outpaced by one clever angle.
The tactic that worked once becomes a doctrine of pressure.
Exhaustion is the hidden tax of constant alert. And patience is the hidden weapons of the attacker.
The harbor mouth becomes a gate and a fear line.
Every false alarm still drains the crew. Hold.
Because one premature move ruins the geometry.
They wait for the ship to blink.
And in that fraction, the sea drone steals the final meters.
The pivot becomes reality, damage that forces caution.
Now the fleet has to decide where it dares to sail.
The immediate result is visible. Ships pull back and hide.
A fleet can survive the night and still lose freedom.
Ukraine measures victory in routes denied, not trophies.
Because keeping commerce alive is part of the war.
But every mission consumes scarce parts and scarce people.
And every success invites retaliation against the coast.
For Russia, defense becomes a constant drain on readiness.
The fleet coils tighter, accepting less sea to avoid more risk.
The ocean look unchanged. Only human behavior has changed.
The cost is fatigue. Operators and sailors living on alert.
The cost is fear, because every shadow could be a strike.
And still, the campaign must continue to matter.
Because denial only lasts if it's enforced.
Adaptation begins. More patrols, more sensors, more counter-drone tactics.
Adaptation answers. Better guidance, better timing, better deception.
But the more automated the sea becomes, the higher the risk of mistake.
Overreaction is the nightmare that grows in panic.
This is what sea denial looks like. A battlefield you can't see. The lesson is not sink the fleet, it's change the map.
A navy shrinks, not in size, but in freedom.
And a smaller sea can still hold enormous consequences.
Both sides learn, and learning accelerates the war.
Today it's sea drones. Tomorrow it may be underwater drones.
The technology spreads because the idea is cheap and effective.
And once fear enters doctrine, it's hard to remove.
This victory costs resources and demands constant repetition.
The sea becomes a weapon when it becomes unpredictable.
But unpredictability cuts both ways.
So what if this victory planted the seed of the next disaster?